Welcome to another episode of the Touchline Hotspur podcast. It's a bit of a depleted cast this week. Christmas is around the corner, so there's a lot of illnesses. There's a lot of people with their kids, their loved ones and whatnot. And there are a lot of people who are just too scared of the cold to come on and jump on the podcast today. So, of course, it's your boy Tottenham Tobes and me and Owen. We're going to keep you company today, or whenever it is you're listening to this, and we're going to dissect the best and the worst of Spurs over the last week. Owen, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. We're kind of depleted with all the L's we've taken recently, but for me, with everything that's going on, I'm just using this as an excuse to put off my rapping for just a little bit. I've currently surrounded myself with all the presents. I've still got to rap, but it's just here.
At least you were thoughtful enough to get people gifts. Spurs, we'd have thought they'd be thoughtful enough to give us a couple Christmas gifts, and they didn't give us any gifts in the league, but at least they gave us a nice little surprise in the Carabao Cup. But we'll touch on that later on. But before we get into the podcast itself, if you're listening for the first time or you're just listening generally and you're not following us already, make sure to follow Touchline Fracas on Twitter, on Instagram. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube page, and then make sure to join us on Discord. We're about on Discord for all the matches, the live matches. So join the discussion, join the live chat, join the chat window, and just come and mingle with us and as we chop it up, really. Again, just before we get into the podcast, as I mentioned earlier, I just wanted to also give a shout out to our new partners, Fanslide. They've definitely added a dash of, what's the word I'm looking for, a little bit of vavavoom to the recent matches that we've watched, for sure. For those of you who don't know what Fanslide is, it's a brand new concept, and it's essentially the world's first in-play fantasy football app. And I can't speak highly of it enough. It's definitely made my viewing experience better in certain cases when I'm winning, and not so good when I'm not winning. So I suggest that if you haven't got the app already, you go out there and you download it as well. Come play against us. Come play against any of your mates who you feel would be best fit in the fantasy world. It's a really cool concept. I know you've downloaded the app recently as well. And we were literally just discussing this off air. I feel like it's a fine balance between sort of strategy and luck, really, because you only have 20 minutes to select 3 players from either team. And once you select those 3 players for that 20 minutes, you can't use them again throughout the match. So you really have to be smart, or you really have to be really lucky to ensure that player gets you some points within the specific time frame they're chosen. So I know, Owen, as I said, we were discussing. We got Wolves coming up this weekend as well, so I guess that's ample opportunity for you to sort of test out your fantasy football skills.
100%, and I think I'm gonna just come out for everyone's next on this one, because I've been sitting back over the last week listening to everyone's strategies, and you and for a more bold strategy. Mario came across, he was being more conservative, picking defenders at certain times. And I'm not going to reveal too much about my strategy. I'm just going to sit back and watch the money roll in. It's going to be fun.
All I'm saying is this, don't go against me, because I am quite formidable when I put my mind to it. Just as an example,
no, I've declared war. I'm sorry.
Chelsea.
This is a declaration of war.
Nah, trust me, you'll lose. Chelsea, West Ham. I put Thiago Silva as the sort of triple point option, and I put Mason Mount as the double point option. I just thought, you know what, Mason Mount on set piece duty, Thiago Silva, him and Zuma have got a couple headers. See, you got to think outside the box. And guess what? Within the first 15 minutes of the game, guess who scores a goal and guess who assists it? Thiago Silva goal, Mason Mount assist, and I was in the money there. So listen,
lucky, but fair play.
Don't test me when it comes to it, but rather than me talking about it, come join us. It's going to be available for a couple of the matches over the sort of festive period as well. So yeah, come join us. Try your hand at winning the cash prize, and try your hand at beating myself or Owen. So we'll see you there, really. But now on to bigger matters. Where do I start? It's been a mixed week for us, isn't it, Owen? Like, it's just been, in fact, it's probably been a mixed 2-week period for us, because it's fair to say this is probably our roughest period of the season so far, of a pretty Pretty solid season on the whole, to be honest. What are you saying? Is it a bump in the road, or is it sort of like a slight worry?
Just a real small bump in the road. Like, we obviously, like you say, we've gone through our most difficult period of probably what's going to be the whole season, right? So going into the Christmas period as well, we came off the first lot of these tough games with really, really good results. And we were kind of saying to ourselves, you probably been a bit more pessimistic than most. Like, if we can keep this up, there's no reason why we can't challenge for the whole thing, right? But yeah, we've kind of fallen away, and we're going to have to take that on the chin and just focus on some of the cups and top four.
Yeah.
Being mere realistic with our ambition.
Yeah. You know what it is? Ambition. You know what it is? Ambition is a good word, because we had this discussion right at the start of the season. Right at the start of the season, and Sai was coming at me, sideways saying, you don't want to stick your neck on the line and blah, blah, blah. And I was just saying to you, look, tranquilo. Stay calm, home. Stay calm. Don't get carried away. The objective for me hadn't changed. Top 3 or top 4 finish and a cup. For me, like you said, it's a bump on the road, so we're still on course to do that. But no shots, no indirects. I'm just hoping that now, as a fan base, we manage our expectations better. And with that in mind, there's no better place to start than the actual previous weekend's fixture itself. So Leicester, it was a pretty uncharacteristically poor performance from us in the league, based on our showings in recent months. I know people will point at Crystal Palace, we didn't win the game, or Liverpool, we didn't win the game, but from a performance perspective, at least we showed clear signs of quality in both of those games. Crystal Palace in the first half, and Liverpool especially in the second half. But this Leicester performance, it just had nothing. It was actually a vomit-worthy performance all around. I think that's the best way to describe it. I think the players didn't turn up. The manager's approach was awful. The subs were questionable, and we saw a return to old ways for one of our most reliable defenders this season. So, without trying to dig too many people out, what was your sort of general take on our performance, Owen?
Yeah, I do want to break it down, because on paper, over the 90 minutes, there's no getting away from it. It was poor. Probably it wasn't quite as poor as the Everton game at the start of the season, but really, the first half we didn't start well at all. Some would say we were very putrid in the first 20-25 minutes. We didn't really look to do anything. It was a game of chess. Like, a lot of people were questioning, why we had Ndombele right up with Kane. Like, I noticed Rodgers was doing the same with Maddison up at Vardy. It was like a game of chess, but no one really had a good attacking plan. I didn't feel like Leicester looked like scoring in the first 25 minutes, which we kind of let them have the ball. Whether that was down to manager instruction or we just sat off, not too sure. They had a half chance through Vardy. Well done. It didn't seem to trouble us that much. We did come into it, I think we came into it towards the end of the first half, like the second half of the first half. So kind of got back on the front foot. We looked to create. We looked like we had more attacking ideas than Leicester, to be honest. I fancied us to probably go on and score. There was even a pretty good opportunity where Son looked like he was just going to rifle it in from the left.
Yeah, I remember.
And he tried to square it, and for something, he had a poor game. Unfortunately, he had a poor game. And then we kind of just got to the end of the first half, and I was thinking, we're going to build a good foundation to go on to the second half, take control of the game, and Aurier, who I've been a big advocate of. I mean, if we go back a few years, there's definitely going to be receipts that for me to say that he should leave the club. But ever since Mourinho's come in, he's been ridiculous. He even played through games just after his brother's passing, and he was still playing at a really high level. And then it was just a shame, because it was just pure head loss.
Exactly. Proper implosion. Like, it's so needless, but it's so Aurier. Like, the thing is, if you'd never watched a Premier League game of football and you've watched Aurier if you hadn't watched a single game of Premier League football prior to this season, you watched Aurier, you'd be thinking, "Wow, that's so out of the blue." If unlike those type of people, if you've been watching Premier League football for years and you've been watching Aurier for years, you would know that's very much normal for Aurier. Not so much this season, but I mean, to put it into perspective, I'm pretty sure that's the 4th or 5th penalty he's given away in the Premier League since he signed for us.
Only David Luiz has conceded more.
Yeah, and let's not forget he also gave away a penalty in that crazy game in the Champions League away to Juventus as well. So as I said, I don't want to dig him out too much. Was it
Real Madrid?
No, that was in fact, yeah.
At the Bernabeu, yeah.
Bernabeu, and actually, no, was it Ben Davies who gave it?
It was Ben Davies against Juventus Inter.
But they had 2 penalties, didn't they? They had, the Higuain.
Oh, yeah. Do you know what? Higuain rifled it down the middle, missed, didn't he?
Yeah, so I'm
you are right.
Yeah, so yeah, like it's a common habit in recent seasons with Aurier, but you don't want to be. It's like you don't want to be too critical, but at the same time you have to be because it's just complete madness. Absolute madness. And
I don't even think the ball was anywhere near Fofana either, which was staggering.
It's ridiculous. I don't know why he did it, but it was a stonewall penalty, and we go into the game 1-0 down, and I think that sort of turned a bad performance that could still be salvaged into a bad performance where we're at real risk of losing the game. And then the second half, oh god. The second half was even worse. I think the second half, the substitutions. I mean, Jose Mourinho, like, you know my thoughts on him. You know my thoughts on his approach. But like, I do think he did get unlucky with the Lo Celso injury, which we'll touch on later on. But to take off Ndombele as poor as he was playing was inexplicable for me. You're trying to score a goal, you're 1-0 down, and you take off our most creative midfielder, who was already playing out of position in the first place. And you bring on Bonehead City Lucas Moura to literally run around like a headless chicken, running into bare traffic and cul-de-sacs, like can't pick his head up to save his life. And in the end, he brought on Gareth Bale as well, who was pretty much ineffectual. Like he came on, he did virtually nothing of note. It was just a mess, really. So we ended up having no link between the midfield and attack. So we had the 2 sitting midfielders in Hojbjerg and Sissoko, and we effectively had Lucas Moura, Gareth Bale, Son, and Kane. Kane was trying to do everything in the second half, and to no avail. Sloppy second goal to give away. No one picking up Jamie Vardy. Alderweireld and Sissoko letting him peel off like that, and it was just a sign of a really, really bad day in the office. But again, we don't really want to get too carried away with this bad performance, because in the league, certainly, it's a rarity that we've played this bad. So you almost don't want to be too harsh on the boys, but at the same time, you have to be, because coming off the back of that unnecessary late goal we conceded against Liverpool and the unnecessary draw we had against Palace, to keep pace, you gotta not drop some of these points, and we've been burnt this week.
You're right. I mean, I do hope that Mourinho's learned his lesson in a sense, but I do think he mismanaged us in the second half. It wasn't like the Crystal Palace second half where I feel like that was more down to the players, but the substitute in itself was strange. Like, okay, you can take Ndombele off if you feel like he's playing badly, but maybe bring on someone who's actually in a slight patch of form. Like, you've got Bergwijn on the bench, Vinicius. So I mean, he mismanaged us throughout, and the whole shape where we just threw on attacking players and hoped for the best reminded me of the Project Restart game away to Sheffield United.
Oh god. Honestly.
Where we just had, it was just all forward players, but no link between midfield and attack. Never looked like creating any chances in that game or this game. Even with Winks, we did improve it a little bit. Like, I'm not even just saying it for my pro Winks agenda. Like, he was necessary. He improved it a bit, but as I say, like Kane, bless him, he did come and drop deep quite a bit, but he had a poor game as well. So it just goes back to your article where you kind of foresaw what was about to happen. So it's like, like, if we can't keep relying on Kane and Son, and if they both have a poor game, then we're going to get poor results.
Yeah, I think Leicester, to their credit, they came in and they To their credit, they did at Spurs. They were efficient. They didn't create many chances. They didn't have to play a 10 out of 10 game. They simply dug deep, defended well. They didn't take too many risks with the ball, and they got their lucky goal from the penalty, and they saw out the lead, and they defended brilliantly.
They did.
I felt in the second half they blocked everything we had, with the exception of that one chance that Sonny had right in front of goal. I felt they did well to shut off the space in behind. I felt they did well to crowd out the midfield and get as many bodies on Harry Kane as possible. I saw something like Ndidi having something like 19 ball or something like that. It's the most in the league. So it just illustrates that Brendan Rodgers, like you said, the game of chess, he won. He got his lucky goal and he defended well, and he didn't need to do much else in the second half. I feel like we made it a bit too easy to defend. We made it too easy for them to defend against, but at the same time, you have to give credit where it's due, man. Leicester, they've been known to get a couple scalps this season, obviously getting a scalp at the Emirates, getting a scalp at the Etihad, and they've come here to score 2 goals and to keep a clean sheet. You have to give their players and you have to give Brendan Rodgers some credit for that. So, yeah, it was really just a poor day all round in the office. And like you mentioned, with the lack of plan B as well, it's a serious issue. I'm at a wit's end here, because I feel like the obvious choice is to persist with the likes of Bergwijn, who, despite the poor, ineffectual efforts in front of goal or the poor offensive output, the general play hasn't been too bad, with the exception of games like Arsenal and Chelsea and whatnot. The general play against Man City, for instance, was good. And despite my harsh criticism, the general play against Liverpool wasn't too bad either as well. So it feels like the obvious choice is to go with what we've got at the moment. Hope that Gareth Bale clicks into gear. Hope that that rabid dog, Eric Lamela, comes on, runs his heart out, and somehow puts some numbers on the board. And hope that Lucas Moura develops a brain. But this is wishful thinking. 2 of these players we've been waiting to see something for a long time now. We ain't seen it. Steven Bergwijn, you give him time, you give him hope. And then Gareth Bale, he's got like 6 months left. So is it a case where we might have to dip into the transfer window to buy some more creativity, to buy some firepower?
Yes. Simple answer, yes. I'll try and elaborate. I mean, because it looks like Dele's imminently out as well, who could be a goal threat, but I think it will take way too many minutes for him. I mean, about 3 or 4 solid games for him to get any form of sharpness back. I just don't see him getting it under Mourinho. We'll touch on that, obviously, I'm sure, a bit later in the podcast. Yeah. Like you say, Lucas and Lamela, especially Lamela, have been particularly poor. I mean, I do accept Lamela is quite inevitable for certain games, but for intensive purposes, yeah, I can't see them get more. Yeah, I mean, for this season onwards, they definitely can't stay. If we can manage to get good fee for them in January, by all means, there's quite a few good deals to be done out there. I mean, we got Sabitzer, who's apparently available for a nice fee.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's in the last year of his contract or not, that being why, but he could bring in that creativity which we would need if we were going to start playing a little bit more on the front foot. And one that I heard has been an advocate of until yesterday, where he lost his bet, is Memphis Depay.
Mate.
Where he there was a tweet actually which surprised me. So Aurier did this tweet where he was saying he's available for €5 million, and someone tweeted with some stats about like how creative he is, and I thought he was probably more of a profile player who's a forward who gets in behind and chips in. The stats showed his shot creation or shot actions created and assists per game is actually higher than his expected goals.
Yeah,
by quite a way as well. So he can definitely be that guy for us.
Yeah, man, he does. He does a lot. And the thing is with Memphis is he's so fluid. He's so versatile. He can play across the attack. He can play behind the striker. Like you said, he can lay chances on the plate. He's a good long distance shooter as well. He's good for putting numbers on the board. And more importantly as well, he can take set pieces. We don't have anyone who can take set pieces anymore.
That's all Bale's supposed to do. And I was actually quite critical of Bale joining initially. Like I got caught up in the romance, like everyone. But even before, I had severe concerns that he was pretty done, and it's looking bleak, I've got to say.
Yeah, it is. But I'm not going to give up on Gareth Bale yet. But it's what we've seen so far has just not been good enough. But I still believe, despite the physical wear and tear his body's been through, there's still quality in them legs, man. We can get something out of Gareth Bale. He's got 6 months left, essentially 6 months, 5-6 months left to show us that you've got something in there. And I
just got injured against Stoke as well, didn't he?
Ridiculous. We'll touch on that anyway. But I still think there's some quality there, and plus. I do feel that there's some quality in Bergwijn, but even with the Gareth Bale, the potential optimism around Gareth Bale and Steven Bergwijn, we still need something else. So if January is the time to cut ties with the likes of Lucas, so be it. If January is the time to bring in the Lactus Sabitzer, so be it. But for me, top options have to be defensive reinforcements in the centre-back position for sure, and either a creative midfielder or a new attacker for me, because like we said, the over-reliance on Harry Kane and Sonny and the lack of front foot football in some of these matches might be our undoing this season if we don't rectify, if we don't use this January transfer window as a springboard to try and maintain the good work we've done so far. And speaking of the good work, it's a nice little segue onto a positive for us this week, man. Because in case you live under a rock, we had a cup quarter final this evening. I mean, last evening, should I say, or Wednesday evening, should I say? And yes, you heard that right. A cup quarter final. Tottenham Hotspur in a cup quarter final. We won the game 3-1. It was away from home against Stoke City, notorious for many scalps back in their Premier League days. And you know the same old story. Oh, can you do it on a cold, rainy night in Stoke? Blah blah. Well, we did it. We absolutely did it. So I know you mentioned Gareth Bale, so I wanted you to sort of give us your take on the performance as a whole yesterday and what you thought of Bale and a few others.
I mean, he did all right to get the goal. And I mean, it was a big game for quite a few of our fringe players, wasn't it? I mean, we had Doherty, who's been criticised early, rightly so. He's come under the lights a bit. Sanchez, who's heavily under the lights. Winks and Dele. Like, it's a big game for all of them. Doherty wasn't great. Sanchez put in a solid game. Winks, Winks. He was man of the match. He was solid. Like, I'm not gonna go over the top with it. I could, but I won't. Got a fair amount of ball recoveries. He looked like he was very forward thinking and created a nice couple of chances. Although I do think for Bale's goal, he was actually aiming for Doherty's overlap.
Yeah, so do I.
Other than Bale. But it was a good finish by Bale for the 45 minutes, which he did play before he got injured. Dele had a solid game, I think. He was looking to try and be more of his old self. I wouldn't say it wasn't that intense, but he was looking to, I mean, he looked sharp on the ball.
Yeah.
For me, apart from the incident, which I guess we'll go into now. It was harsh from Mourinho, if not, I mean, at the very least, a little bit pedantic for coming out and like singling him out for individual criticism after the game. Although I do think like people were saying that, he wasn't harsh because he got asked a direct question. But I mean, Mourinho was asked direct questions like this about Aurier against Leicester. Didn't criticise him against. He got asked the same question about Bergwijn against Liverpool. Didn't criticise him, but for Ali, he was just on his neck, and it was a bit over the top.
Yeah, man. As the old ratchet saying in America is, keep the same energy. Keep the same energy. That's something that we don't see from this manager, man. Like, I'm all for Ali not being a starter in the Premier League. I felt Ali had as good as a chance as anyone in our squad to stamp his name on that Premier League team sheet. He was played pretty much every single game earlier on at the start of the year, and he just wasn't good enough. And it's something we've seen from Dele Alli, not it's not new. We saw it on a Pochettino as well. I know he had these injury problems and whatnot, but he's been fit for the last couple of months, and he's just not looked like he's contributing much. So as far as Premier League inclusion is concerned, I can understand him not starting, and I can even understand him not being in a matchday squad. If you don't fancy him, you don't fancy him. But I mean, a game like Stoke, where he looked like he was one of our brighter players in the first half, for you to hook him off thinking he's the problem and then to dig him out in a post-match conference as well, it's clear to see that it's personal. I don't like the way he's treating Ali, but I mean, it seems like it's a marriage that's set to end. He came in, he put his arm around Ali, he tried to turn Ali and tried to improve the performances. That wasn't prolonged. And now Ali wasn't performing to the level he wasn't, and now you're just uncharacteristic. In fact, it's not even uncharacteristic. Now it's very familiar behavior from Mourinho. Now you hung him out to dry and you're treating him like a bag of crap. So listen, it's gonna end now. He's as good as gone in January. So so be it. So be it. It's one of those things, really. Anyway, so like it is what it is, man. Ali, I like him. I would give him until the end of the season, but you can't really begrudge the club selling him, because let's be real, the last 2-3 years have not been the Dele Alli that we saw in the first sort of 2-3 years of his career. So yeah, it's a weird one, man. What did you think of the semi-final? The semi-final draw, Brentford at home.
Favourable. Yeah. Favourable. We can just let the Manchester clubs duke it out. It is United v City in the semi, isn't it? Yeah, it's favourable. We should go through. There's no excuses if we don't. It's, as I say, it's a favourable draw. We are the better team on paper, even if we use fringe players for at least half of the starting lineup. Again, we should still go through.
Yeah,
I'm firmly expecting us to be in the final against one of the Manchester clubs.
Yeah, same. I know we had that scare when we were last all those years back on the Pochettino, when we faced Sheffield United and a young Shea Adams was tearing us a new a-hole away from home at Bramall Lane. But I feel like it will be comfortable with us having a semi-final game in our home ground as well. So it's a bit different. Well, I say different, I know, because we played at Wembley last year, a couple of seasons ago, and so on and so forth. But it's different now, playing the cup semi-final at the new White Hart Lane. So we got to take advantage of it, and we got to rotate, like you said, play some of those fringe plays, but we also got to keep some integrity in that team and just make sure we were in that final come April, really. What did you think of Harry Kane playing 90 minutes? Because I know obviously Mourinho used up his subs. I could go into detail on why that was a bit clumsy on his part, but Harry Kane playing a full 90 minutes, Sonny playing 45 minutes that game as well. I know obviously everyone's praising Lamella's return, but again, back on the over-reliance point, do we feel like Mourinho's not resting Son and Kane at times where he has the opportunity to rest them?
It's hard to tell. I couldn't say. I mean, they've both had a bit of a drop off in performances recently, though. So I would only really put that down to me. I mean, you'd have both mental and physical fatigue, right? But I'd say I'd lean more towards physical fatigue at this point, just with the congested run of fixtures. We are over relying on them. We know that, and yeah, it must be they've just lost that extra little 10% in their fitness, I think, and they've just had a drop off from that, and you've got to question it if these players that you are relying on, and they have had a drop off in intensity while you're still playing them for 90 minutes. I think we did press Son.
Yeah, he came on at halftime, which is good. But I didn't mind Kane starting the game on Wednesday, but what I was hoping was that you could at least bring on Vinicius in the second half, go 2-1 up, take off Harry Kane, bring him on. I mean, bring on Vinicius, let him see out the game, give Kane some rest ahead of what's going to be a tough game on Saturday or Sunday against Wolves. But 90 minutes on Wednesday, off the back of 90 minutes against Leicester, off the back of 90 minutes against Liverpool as well. It's a busy period coming up for us, and we want to keep our key players as fresh as possible. There was no point you buying Vinicius if you're not going to give him any sort of minutes in games like this as well. But you know what? to Jose Mourinho's credit, he did rotate to a good enough extent in the Europa League group stage matches as well. So I'm hoping that we can see Vinicius in the FA Cup third round tie against Marine, and maybe even in some
play there.
Yeah, maybe even in some of the Premier League matches as a substitute, or possibly even as a start. You never know. You never know.
No, you're right. I mean, I've liked what I've seen of Vinicius so far, and to my knowledge, I think he's only had minutes as a substitute against West Brom, right? And he clearly affected the game when he came on, just by being a presence to allow Kane to run off him, which is incidentally how we got the goal in that game. So, I mean, I can't remember who we've got after Wolves, but there's just going to be surely some opportunity for him to get minutes in the league, because he's actually one of our players who are actually somewhat in form.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Yeah, no, you're right. Let me even just quickly double check our fixtures just to make sure. So yeah, we got Wolves on the 27th, which is the Sunday. Then we got Fulham at home, Leeds at home, and then I'm pretty sure we've got the FA. When's the FA Cup third tie? But yeah, we've got the FA Cup third tie. Then we've got 1 second. Yeah. No, sorry. We've got Wolves away, Fulham at home, Leeds at home, Brentford at home, and then Marine FC in the FA Cup on the 10th, followed by Aston Villa away from home. So you would imagine, at least for those 5 games I mentioned, the first 5 games, Vinicius should at least get 1 start. 1 or 2 starts in some of those fixtures we mentioned. So let's just wait and see, really. And with that, we can sort of move on to the Wolves sort of preview as well. And the first thing that I want to vent my frustration over is Giovanni Lo Celso. It's ridiculous that people are now calling him. It's one thing for people to call him Lamella 2.0, which I don't like, because I think like Lamella's crap and I don't think Lo Celso is crap. But I feel like now it's becoming a bit appropriate because of the injuries. I'm sick to death of seeing this guy get injured. And now we're hearing that he's not going to play any part in the rest of the fixtures across the festive period. What's your thoughts?
It's just a shame, because he just is such a gifted player, and we've had, I think quite a few of us have had to defend him as well over his spell here for not getting enough goals or assists or whatever, even though he's at his best when he operates deep. So it's just a shame. I'm more disappointed than angry. It's one of those where I would like to know a bit more from what's going on behind the scenes, because from what I could gather from the Project Restart period is that he was playing through an injury willingly, and thus perhaps damaging his body worse and worse. So I don't know if he's just still doing that and he's picked up another injury, or it's just been another unlucky setback. But he's going to be a massive miss for sure, and we've got to have players like Winks. He's going to have to step up, and Ndombele is going to have to play more minutes, which I'm sure he can.
Yeah,
which I'm sure he can. And yeah, we may end up having to just rely on Winks a bit more.
You'd love that, wouldn't you?
I would. I really would.
You're actually Winks' fanboy. I'm not sure.
I was about to say Sissoko, but yeah.
I would describe you as Winks is your daddy, basically, just like that girl who was saying Ben Davies was her daddy. But
she couldn't join us on the pod, but maybe next week.
Yeah. So Wolves is an interesting one, really, because they've not really been in the best of form, and I feel like that can be said. I feel like that statement could be said pre-Jimenez and post-Jimenez. And not when I say form, I know they have picked up some results here and there, but when you watch the performances with Wolves, you're not really convinced that like they're good. They're good. They can get a result here and there, but they're not threatening enough for my liking. And this could be the commentator's curse. I'm hoping it's not, because I'm touching wood. But coming up against Wolves, you would think a counter-attacking side versus what we now see as a counter-attacking side under Jose Mourinho, it's gonna be a weirdly sort of cagey affair where I reckon both teams will cancel each other out. But are you Are you quite frightful of Wolves? Because I know they've obviously just they beat Chelsea not too long ago, but then they go to Burnley and they lose 2-1. They play Aston Villa at home and they lose 1-0. They go to Anfield, fair enough, it's Anfield, and they get flogged 4-0. So yes, these aren't easy matches to play, with the exception of probably Burnley. But I'm just thinking with Wolves now, with no Jimenez, what's your take on what we're due to expect on Sunday?
Like you say, it's 100%. I mean, you could put your money on it being a cagey affair for sure. I mean, Nuno Santos is pretty much from the school of Mourinho, having played under him before, to be honest. And I, like, ironically enough, as much as a fan I am of how Mourinho sets us up to suit us, I've in the past called Nuno a bit of a coward in a way where he doesn't really tend to rotate his squad much. He's very very conservative, to say the least. He has the three at the back, which I'm not sure. I think they've played around with the four at the back recently, but still looking to play in a very similar way to us. So I know typically when Mourinho comes against these type of sides, we'll see him go more 4-4-2, because teams like that predominantly try and exploit the wings to attack. If we use 4-4-2, we kind of make sure we don't get isolated by using our trusty defensive wingers, and then just play on the break. So I expect that to happen, and I think we can still get a result playing like that, as long as we don't. I'm not a fan of this sitting back 0.00 expected goals kind of way of playing. I know we typically only really do that if we've already taken the lead, but a similar performance by being a tad more on the front foot than with how we played against Liverpool, I think that will see us out.
Yeah, I agree. I agree already. And for me, it's more than a tad. We need to be on the front foot in a lot more of these matches than we have been. That's my biggest beef with Jose Mourinho. But I'm not going to knock what he's done this season. I'll put my issues to a side. Not going to knock what he's done this season, but I feel like the team need to recognize the threat that we're up against on Sunday. Like I said, I don't really rate Wolves as well as I have done in recent seasons. They're a good side, but they're a very beatable side. Me, if I'm putting my money on it, I would put it on a Tottenham win, probably a 2-1 win. But we have to be wary of the threat that they carry out wide with Podence and Pedro Neto. Podence is doing his best Eden Hazard impression, especially with the
very good as well.
Butt cheeks as well. Sorry,
you're not still touching wood, are you?
Yeah, Podence doing his very best Eden Hazard impression, and then you got Pedro Neto, who can play both sides, can play through the middle, and he's just so aggressive with the ball. So I feel like we're going to need to be wary of that threat, especially on the counter. And I feel like we need to be on their midfielders. We can't let the likes of Moutinho or Neves get time and space to start spraying that ball around. We need to be at it from the off. And on the whole, I just want to see a better performance or a better start to the match than we had against Leicester. I want to see a start similar to what we had against Crystal Palace as well. And I want to see us on the front foot. I want to see us on the front foot, and I want us to take the game to Wolves and try and kill that game as quickly as possible. What's your sort of predicted scoreline for that match?
I'm going to go with it being a cagey one. I'm going to let you in a little bit on my fan side strategy. I'm not going to be using any players in that match, because I just can't predict it or guess it. But I'm going to go for a 2-1 cagey win. As long as we can stay solid from set pieces as well. We may not even concede a goal at all, but with our recent ability to just not be able to defend set pieces or attack them, for that matter, we'll probably try and scrape it 2-1.
Wolves. I feel like Wolves. We tend to do quite well there away from home. Maybe not performance-wise, yes, but results-wise, the last 2 seasons we've come out of there with 3 points each time. Jose Mourinho obviously got that late winner, courtesy of Jan Vertonghen last year to win 2-1. And then our beloved Maurizio Pochettino went there 3-0 up, and we somehow crawled to a 3-2 win.
That was fourth conceding 2 penalties, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It was weird.
Had
a good game, but somehow conceded 2 penalties. It was weird. But speaking on Pochettino as well, that's a nice little segue onto the last part of our podcast. So
I like that.
Obviously, Pochettino, rumors soon to be confirmation of his appointment as PSG manager. We know Thomas Tuchel got sacked. Thomas Tuchel's been sacked today, and we know that Poch is locked in talks to be the next Paris Saint-Germain manager. So what's your general thoughts on this? Because it feels like on the Twitter sphere, the Spurs Twitter sphere, it's like you either have the people who are really happy for Poch and want him to do well, and then you have the people who are like, oh, move on, jog on, he's left us, why do you care so much? I don't get. What's your take?
It's a very sour taste in my mouth. I even saw someone from right-wing Spurs Twitter kind of say, like, along the same lines as that, like, why are we still talking about
Tory Spurs Twitter? Yeah,
Tory Spurs, right-wing Aaron Lennon Spurs. Oh God, it's so rife with kind of Pochettino disrespect. I mean, I saw one guy earlier. He kind of said, like, you know, Pochettino's not our manager anymore. Why is there such a wank fest about him on the TL? I'm just like, you can't not want him to do well. You can't not. And Jack, shout out to Jack. He summarized it well with the tweet. It was a quote of someone else kind of declaring how, like, what he had done for us in terms of like our best ever points tally in like proactive, exciting football, and what he was for me as well. Like, I want to touch upon this without going on too much of a tangent. We obviously all support Spurs, and you know, sometimes you'll have a kind of hipster team who you would support on the side as like someone you want to do well. And for me, around like 2012-13 times, that was Klopp's Dortmund, unfortunately. Yeah. But once we got Pochettino and we got into full flow with him, my favorite hipster team was my own team. Yeah. And I could fully stick my chest out on the timeline and any football banter because of Pochettino. He was my favorite hipster team and favorite team that I support because of Pochettino. And the way he elevated us from kind of being in and out of the top four to being, you know, contenders for the top titles, we can't forget that. Yeah. I don't know why it's given fans the sense to not acknowledge that at all. Like, I hope that flag of him at the stadium with kind of him holding his arms up stays at the stadium like forever. We can't not acknowledge what he's done for us.
Yeah, man. Yeah, couldn't have put it better myself. I'm not going to wax lyrical about Poch. You know my thoughts. I'm fully in your camp on this as well. And I feel like from our side of the Spurs camp, I feel like we're all hoping that he does well at PSG, because really,
100%.
We know the PSG manager. You're not being employed there to win the league. The league is an expectation. What you're being employed there to do is to not only dominate the league, but to get as high up the food chain as possible in the Champions League. And with his methods, with his strategy, and with his balance between front foot attacking football and defensive stability, they have every chance of going as far as possible in the competition, especially with that attack. So listen, Poch, we wish you well. We wish you well. If you come up against Chelsea, knock them out for us, please, as well. So yeah.
I think we can say that safely the whole podcast is probably behind him at PSG as well, especially like from a selfish perspective as well. I'm so glad he hasn't joined Man United. Honestly, like, I want to hear Muga bums twitching after this that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer somehow outlasted Thomas Tuchel, who's a Champions League finalist, and they're not getting their man. I want to see who they're going to twerk for next.
Yeah, exactly. They've been whoring themselves out for Pochettino.
Very interesting.
Literally, like the best part of 2.5 years, and even Arsenal fans have been opening their legs and begging.
Every week on Touchy Gooners now, I'm hearing his name.
Begging for Pochettino, and it was never going to happen. And now that nail's finally been sort of hammered home into the coffin. So Poch, we wish you all the best. And with that, I feel like we can sort of bring the podcast, this week's podcast, onto a close. Owen, it's been a pleasure chopping it up with you.
Thank you. It's been festive. It's been fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Loving the jumper.
Yeah, I had to represent, of course, keeping it Christmassy, but also keeping it Tottenham at the same time as well. If you're still listening and you want to catch some more of us, make sure to jump on the Discord this weekend. Make sure to download Fanslide as well. Compete with us as well. We'll be active throughout the festive period as well, not just for the Wolves game, but for the Fulham game, the Leeds game, and the games leading up into the new year as well. So jump until then. We'll see you later. Take care.
Happy Christmas. Peace.